Did you ever ask an old person, somebody who is close to their death, about what they regretted or what they would advise you to do differently than they had done? Did you ever wonder how yourself, when you were old, you would look back on your life and what would be your regrets? When most people are getting older in the last stages of their life, the most common kind of advice to get is go and enjoy, go and experience, go travel, go and see things, go and have fun. Don't take it so seriously. Climb mountains, watch sunsets. Enjoy your life while you can before it's too late. Because these people who are giving this advice can no longer do these things. They can no longer climb mountains freely with their limbs not aching every step of the way. Maybe they can no longer even walk. Maybe they're going blind. Maybe they don't hear well anymore. So it's hard for them to listen to music. Maybe they lived life seriously with the plan of finally enjoying themselves at the age of 65, building up a good pension, or they dedicated their time in a job that they didn't really like, also that at the age of 65, they could finally do what they, quote-unquote, really wanted. So that's why we often hear the advice, go and enjoy. Take life lightly, just laugh, enjoy, be happy, have fun. Because if we don't take advantage of sensual pleasures now, then we will soon have no more. When we listen to this, what does it make us think? Do we want to follow their advice? Go and take as our aim in the life to just enjoy ourselves before it's too late? Or do we see that there's something wrong? Have you ever noticed how after you eat a piece of chocolate, after the taste of the chocolate is gone, then you don't have it anymore and you go right back to the same position you were in before you ate the piece of chocolate, where again you want a piece of chocolate. Going and getting the thing that you want doesn't satisfy the desire that you had. You get a little moment of pleasure and then it's over. And then you're left in the same position again, just wanting more. Or perhaps you just continue eating and eating and eating and stuffing yourself with chocolate until you get sick. So that doesn't really end well either. You didn't really fulfill or satisfy the thing, because still what was good ends up going bad. Still the pleasant thing ends up turning sour. Plus now you feel a bit ill. So to come back to our image of the person who is now at the end of their life in an old folks' home, in a wheelchair. Let's say it's an old woman sitting in her wheelchair looking out the window at the falling snow and thinking about her life. It's like eating the chocolate. Even if she got to experience something that gave her some sense of sensual pleasure, all that she has of it now is the memory of it, which is not satisfying enough. All that is left of this now is a kind of aching nostalgia for what was past, the longing to go back there, and the sadness of not being able to, the sadness for what she has lost, her family, her husband, her friends, her career, her place in the world. Everything is gone, and she can only look back at it. She still wants to go back and have more of it. Going to climb mountains, I didn't go to this country or that country, I didn't see this site that I wanted to see, I didn't do everything I wanted to do. And really the question is, when is it enough? When does it actually satisfy us, this going and reaching out for sensual pleasures of whatever kind? When have we climbed enough mountains that we have satisfied our craving for beautiful views? When have we traveled to enough different countries that now we feel like we've seen the world and it's enough? And is this enough when we say, okay, I've traveled the world and it's enough? Because some people really go to extremes in these things and they travel for several years and do nothing but that, or they just party for several years and do nothing but that. It's kind of rare, but some people do that. But even at the end of that, are you satisfied now? Do you feel like you're fulfilled? Have you completed what you came to do? And what's left is still an emptiness, still a void, still a hole that is not filled. Okay, what's next? I need something else. And that's because telling to ourselves, okay, I'll be happy if I see one more country, or if I climb one more mountain, or if I do this one more other thing that I haven't done yet, or if I have just a little bit more of this or that. It's as if we have a jar that is missing the bottom of it, and we think that by pouring more water into it, it will get full. Will it get full? No, not even if you pour all the water from all the oceans through it. And then you'll say, but maybe there will be a whale that will get stuck in the jar, and then, yes, it will be full because the whale is stuck in it and it can't get... No, no whales here. No big fish either. Only water, because sensuality is of a nature that it can never stay in the jar. It can never stick there. It never is fulfilling. I spoke about it in another video, similar. Do we know the taste of something that tastes good after it's gone? No. If we really knew the taste of it, then we wouldn't need to go and get more of it to have the taste again and again and again. So living our lives in this way is like we're basically just in a kind of endless loop. We have our jar and we're pouring more and more and more water into it. Never ever it's getting full. And still we don't kind of realize that it's not because this water is not the right kind of water. I need to choose seawater instead of lake water, or I need to use a vortexed water instead of normal water. No, it's because the jar itself is bottomless. You can't fill it with water. You need to complete the jar itself. So this jar is like the metaphor for craving, or the metaphor for ourselves. When our mind has this hole in it of craving, this hole that is still there, craving, as long as the hole is there, it still will eat more and more and will never ever be satisfied. They call it the unquenchable thirst. That's why it's a problem. As long as we have this craving for more, it is forever unsatisfied, it is forever unsatisfactory. And the more we follow this craving inside of us, especially for sensuality, for things like money and things like sex, it's the reason that people kill, it's the reason that people steal, it's the reason that people lie to each other, that they become enemies of each other, that people will invade other people's countries and take their lands and take their money and enslave their people, all because of this same hole that is in our own heart too. You can see it in yourself so easily every day, how so many of your actions are guided by this same just desire for what is agreeable, whatever is enjoyable, what is fun, what is nice. And then if we can have it right away, we go and get it. If we can't have it right away, like let's say for example, if some page on the internet is taking too long to load, impatience. When will it be there? So this craving, this desire of what is agreeable, what we like, and at the same time, in the same way, being repulsed, desiring to get away from what we don't like, to get rid of it, is the master, it's the slave master of our entire lives. It really is what drives our lives. And it's very important to realize that it's this craving, this hole in the jar that is the problem. It's not the fault of the objects of craving themselves. This is a misunderstanding that's very common or easy to make, and that is made all the time in many different cultures. Just for example, in Europe in the past, it was very frowned upon for women to show their ankles, because the ankles of women put sexual desire in men, which is wrong. But you shouldn't blame the ankles. The ankles is just a bone with skin around it, a little hinge. There's nothing to blame in the ankle. So people make this sort of mistake about the object of desire being the problem. Whenever I see this object, I have desire, therefore it's the fault of the object. But no, if it's not this one, it will be another one. If you go and hide yourself away in a cave, you just avoid the problem, and still, even if you don't have the objects in front of you, you still have a mind. And it's in this mind where desire is born, where it grows, and that's where we have to study it, to study the suffering it causes. As soon as there is the desire, there is problem, there is suffering. The object can be agreeable. It can be agreeable to see a beautiful flower. But to desire, as soon as we desire that, we want to have it for ourselves, we want to have more of them, we want to keep them. As soon as we have this desire, it becomes suffering. Now it becomes, oh, but it's in the neighbor's garden, so how can I make the impression that it was an animal that crushed the plant instead of me taking it, and all this kind of complication, suffering, unpleasantness that arise out of it. Before I end finally, I just want to also tell you about a particularly striking analogy that the Buddha gives. So he starts by presenting this story that once there was a leper with wounds, blisters all over his arms and legs, being eaten by worms. He was scratching with his nails at the opening of his wounds, and so he would burn his body over a pit of coals to cauterize the wounds. It's clear, it's obvious that the more he scratches his wounds and burns his body, the fouler the wounds become, the more infected they become, and the more they stink. And yet, this poor leper, he has a certain satisfaction and certain relief from the itching of his wounds when he burns them and when he scratches them. So it's in this way, he says, that the Buddha sees other beings who are caught up in the desire of sensual pleasures, obsessed by sensual pleasures, addicted to sensual pleasures, indulging in sensual pleasures. The more you indulge in sensual pleasure, it's like the more you scratch, the more you follow your desire, it doesn't make the desire end. It makes it worse, actually. It worsens the symptom, it worsens the disease. And yet, it's the only possible relief from sensual desire that we know. We don't know any other possibility of going and following our desires. And we don't know anything better. So the Buddha goes on in this example, he also says, so suppose this leper were to be cured, had a doctor that finds a cure and gives it to him and he heals himself. Then after that he is free from this leprosy, able to go around where he wants, he can have a wife, he can have children, and he is happy and independent. So now if he sees a leper pass by him in the street scratching at his wounds on his way to burn his own body in the pit of hot coals, will he be jealous? Of course not. He's not jealous of the little satisfaction and little sad relief that this other poor leper had in this condition that he himself once experienced, because now he doesn't need that anymore because he has a much higher freedom. So it's the same with the desire of craving, this craving for sensual pleasures. When you have removed this slave master, when you have freed yourself from this disease, there's really no more desire to go back and fill yourself again with these kind of sensual pleasures because you don't need it. You're free of the disease. You have access to a much higher joy, a much higher freedom. So that's probably more than enough for today. I'll just summarize briefly the main points. First of all, it was to see that when old people, looking back on their lives, give the advice to enjoy as much as possible, it's because they have regret or they have nostalgia for the pleasures that they once enjoyed and that were not enough. But if we ask ourselves, is it possible to actually gain a sense of completion, of fulfillment through going and indulging in more sensual pleasures and more enjoyment? The answer is no, because it's like trying to fill a jar that has no bottom to it with all the water in the world. Or it's like the disease of leprosy that causes the itching of the leper. When he scratches his itch, it makes it feel just a little bit better for a moment. It gives him a short relief until it just makes it scratch even more. But the one who is wise, instead of just searching to scratch more and more and more his whole life, will search for the cure, for the way to end his disease.